What do you mean we're playing baby hot potato? I didn't order a latte, so now my father's alive? Please wear a condom. Hi, my name is Sash, and this is Shelved by Sash. In today's video, we're going to be talking about my 5 favorite and least favorite books that I read in 2025. Now, before we get started with this video, I do want to say your opinions might not match with my opinions. If you disagree with me, that is perfectly fine. Feel free to tell me how in the comments, but know that I am not saying anything about you or your reading tastes or your personality or your worth if you like any of the books that I don't like, or if you didn't like any of the books that I do like. We are different people, and it is fine for us to have different opinions. Your opinion is valid the same way my opinion is valid. I just wanted to make that disclaimer because we live in a bean soup world. We live in a if you like waffles you must hate pancakes world. I do hate pancakes and love waffles. Nothing I say in this video is a condemnation on you and your tastes or your opinions, but it has to be said. Now, I will admit, I had a dog shit reading here last year. It was not good at all. And despite the fact that I am a hater at heart, I do want to read good books. So it is with a heavy heart that I make this video. I'm going to start off by listing and telling you about the 5 books that I read this year that I had a great time with. And then we'll go into the 5 worst books I read because there were a lot to choose from. Making the worst list was actually harder because, like I said, I'm a hater at my core, and there was a lot to hate this year. So let's get into it. So, in no particular order, starting with number 5 is Allow Me to Introduce Myself. The book follows Honori, and Honori was a child influencer, and she was forced into that role by her stepmom and her father. And now, as an adult, she's reckoning with the kind of fracturing that has placed under her relationships, and she's dealing with this through therapy and through conversations with friends and with family. And I found it actually a really cool exploration of what happens when child influencers age and then gain their own agency. It's very poetic and beautiful. It's also very sad. The only reason I didn't give this book 5 stars is because, honestly, the language kind of gets suffocating at some points. It's almost as if in trying to make it really flowery, it kind of gets really dense. And when every sentence is something to luxuriate in, it becomes almost too rich. Like the language is too full. That being said, this book made me generate the longest quotes list out of any book that I read this year, so that's telling you something. To be conflicted was to understand that to many you are someone, but to most you are nobody at all, and to simultaneously fear and crave both. She could see the potential for enduring disaster already forming. His grief was a weed that, if left untended, could choke out the goodness and claim the light from everywhere it reached. But the lessons we learn as children are not grease. They cannot be sluiced off with soap and water. They burrow and even lay dormant until they manifest later in life as hyper-independence or avoidance or fear of abandonment. So yeah, rich language. I really had a great time with this, and I read it for actually my mother's book club, and hearing from the author, who is a Nigerian immigrant, and how she infused that perspective into this book was really incredible. And she actually interviewed a lot of now adult child influencers, and she kind of pieced together the experience of being an immigrant and also being a former child influencer into this story, and you can really feel that attention and care that she gives into the story. I kind of have a complicated feeling about authors who write stories that are not their own. On one hand, obviously, we would be bereft of the brilliance of literature if authors only wrote about their own experiences. But on the other hand, I feel most popular stories I see now written by authors who don't share the experience of their characters are not really done with care. And that's when we can get into this kind of really rigid stance that authors shouldn't write about experiences that are not their own. And, I've even expressed this sentiment in the past, but this book proves me wrong. My 4th favorite book of 2025 is Mexican Gothic. Now, this was so fun to listen to on audiobook, with the caveat that I really did not like the way that the audiobook narrator delivered this story. Her voice is very distinct and very distracting, I will say, but by the end of the book, I was so engrossed in the story that I found myself not caring. And sometimes I wonder when I listen to audiobooks how much my enjoyment of the narrator is either giving to or taking away from my experience of the book. And in this case, definitely took away a little bit, but the story was so fun, in my opinion, that didn't matter at all. Mexican Gothic is about womanhood, marriage, childbirth, and colonialism, and it uses the metaphors and depictions of fungi and rot to kind of explore these themes. And wow, it honestly honestly, I have said it before, but it is like Mexican Get Out. This book is so fun and it kind of has this like cinematic feel. I really, really hope that this gets an adaptation into visual form because the way that it's told really lends to that feeling of you being in the camera's POV right behind the narrator as she's like frantically running through the halls or as she's experienced something. Like you could feel yourself in the room when she's finding out like the big twists. And I am a very expressive person, as you can probably tell. And the faces this book made me make, I'm still thinking about that to this day. And I read this book in February of last year, of 2025. And wow, I'm still thinking of like the visceral descriptions and like the reveals and all the plot twists. I was like, oh my God, like you can see the faces I'm making right now, even just remembering how this book made me feel. Wow. All I will say is it's a really fun time and it uses the genre of thriller to tell a really, really compelling story about the horrors of colonialism and the horrors of what happens when white people infest an indigenous community, specifically when they infest it with their wealth and their bigotry. And man, the reveals in this book, I actually like, I'm like getting stressed even thinking about it, man. My third favorite book of 2025 is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. This book has been on my TBR since I was 12 years old, so a long, long, long time. And I will say that in being a really, really sweet coming of age story, it is not sweet in the sense of saccharine. It's sweet in the sense of a childhood love coming to fruition. It's sweet in kind of feeling the stickiness of summer and the flies buzzing in your head and riding down in the cul-de-sac on your bicycle. It felt so suburban and so summer that I was actually getting like nostalgic. It's sweet in that sense. So I feel like if I read it at the right age group, this book would have been my entire personality. I would have probably been talking about it all the time on Tumblr. In saying that, as an adult reading it, it just was really cute. It's also one of those books that has really like a literary flow to it, and the quotes, despite the fact that it's not in a genre that I really enjoy too much anymore, it was fantastic. You could smell the rain in the desert even before a drop fell. I closed my eyes. I held my hand out and felt the first drop. It was like a kiss. The sky was kissing me. It was a nice thought. It was something Dante would have thought. I felt another drop, and then another. A kiss, and then another kiss. Okay, so now the reins are forever changed for me. This book makes being an adolescent feel romantic. The second best book I read in 2025 is actually a trilogy, and that is the Hunger Games trilogy. I did not expect this to hold up as well as it does because sometimes when a book or a piece of media has an intense fandom and cultural notoriety around it, I feel like our perception of the quality of that media can be hidden behind a veil of nostalgia. But this book, I feel like now it is almost even more relevant than ever. And in some ways, that's really scary. And then in other ways, it's kind of incredible the ways in which artists can really capture the truth of the moment and how that truth can exist over a long period of time. Honestly, I read these books way too quickly. I read them all in 1 week, I think. And I definitely do not recommend doing that. Reading them all that quickly, definitely a perfect way to depress yourself. But also, I used to think that these were the most like politically sophisticated books of all time, but also I was like 15, so of course I would think that. But now that I'm an adult and 10 years out from that fact, I can see the ways in which Suzanne kind of has blind spots for some things. That being said, I think this is a perfect trilogy. I give the first one 5 stars and the second two 4.5 each because it was just banger after banger after banger. I was highlighting and being like, this is happening right now. Like, oh my God, the erosion of social cohesion. Like, oh my God. I definitely think if you haven't reread the books, definitely do that. It's kind of sad. It's also kind of cool. And then my absolute favorite book of 2025, Emergency Skin. This book, it's a short story about an astronaut who is this descendant of a colony of men who left Earth after some disaster was happening, and he has been sent back to Earth to collect HeLa cells because they need them to proliferate because it's a male-only society. The setting off point for this plot is that in this society, only the top people are allowed skin. It's kind of gross, but he has been told that if he goes on this super dangerous mission to what he assumes is a catastrophically destroyed Earth, that he will earn his skin. And when he gets to Earth, things are not as it seems at all. And what I really found so fun and so interesting about this book is that it's not at all told from the perspective of any of the characters of the book. Rather, it's told from the perspective of this astronaut's guiding AI. And the AI is not impartial. In fact, it comes with all of the bigotry that's been ingrained into this astronaut by this society. And you kind of see a more modernized Earth through the eyes of almost like a super bigoted alien. And it's so funny because N.K. Jemisin perfectly captures the hilarity and hypocrisy of being a bigot and a white supremacist. Because, like, what do you mean you need to come back to Earth for HeLa cells? Henrietta lacks the cells for your male-only society to proliferate, but you think Black people and women are inferior. Right. I just having an absolute blast because unfortunately, the opinions that this bigoted ass AI holds are opinions that common white supremacists, Nazis, and right wingers hold today. So it is the author using this exaggerated situation to make fun of people today. And I honestly gained a new respect for the medium of a short story because I never assumed that you could get that much of a lasting message through such a short time. The book is less than 100 pages. It took me an hour to read. Fantastic. Honestly, even from the first paragraph, I was like, I know I'm gonna give this book 5 stars. That's how good it was. And if you can, please listen to the audiobook because it is narrated by Jason Isaacs. And when I tell you this man puts his whole actusy into this performance, that's exactly what he does. This book was so fun. So yeah, that's my top 5 favorite books of 2025. Let's get into my top 5 worst books. Okay, starting with the best of the worst. My 5th least favorite book of the year is The Midnight Library. Coming to this book expecting a really cool premise and a really cool execution, when what we got was some really insensitive portrayals of suicidality, really shallow explorations of what a woman's worth is, was actually super, super upsetting. The only part that I liked about this book was that the animals have fun names. And I'm not joking. And if you don't know, The Midnight Library follows the story of a woman who attempts to take her own life. And in the minute between life and death, she's thrust into this pocket dimension where her childhood librarian says, "Welcome to the Midnight Library. All of the books you see on the shelves are the lives you would have had if you made a different choice." Upon the first perusal of a book, of a choice that our main character makes, you can clearly understand the point of the book, but you would be alone because the main character does not understand the point of the book. It's actually really, really frustrating to see this woman go into every situation and be like, "So I don't have memories of this life, and people think I do because I'm the same me, but I made a different choice and now I didn't order a latte, so now my father's alive." Yeah, girl, that's the premise of the book, and I get being confused upon the first and the second and the third time, maybe. But upon hundreds of times of doing this, it's actually so annoying. What is the point of this book? The point is, don't kill yourself. Which I think is just super lame and super boring. My 4th least favorite book of 2025 is The Couple Next Door. If you thought that the protagonist of The Midnight Library was dumb, wait till you read this fucking book. The actual plot of this book, when you sit back and think about it, it's actually just like so stupid. Like, spoilers, I'm just gonna say spoiler right now. Sorry. What do you mean we're playing baby hot potato? I actually was just going, bruh. Every single reveal, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that A, B, C, D, E, F, G, every character was involved in this abduction. Like, what are you talking about? It's one of those books that does not want you to guess the ending. So it's just going to be like, they were in on it the whole time. Oh, and they were in on it the whole time. And oh, they were in, like, okay, we get it. Everyone was in on it the whole time. And I think that can be a really fun story. But because we get everyone's perspective, it's not a thriller anymore. It's just a retrospective of this really, really whack ass week. I would just kept thinking to myself, this would have been so good if we got it from one character's perspective and that character was the detective, because obviously you're coming into a thriller expecting to figure out the clues. So coming from the detective's perspective would have just been logical. Like, you can suspend your disbelief for thrillers, and in fact you should, because most of them are a little bit silly if you don't suspend your disbelief a little bit. This one, not worth the suspension. And definitely a quick read, because I was so frustrated that I just wanted it to end and I wanted everyone to be put in jail immediately for their shenanigans. The third worst book I read this year was actually the first book that I finished in 2025, and that is Assistant to the Villain. Now, I love a grumpy sunshine trope as much as the next person, but listen to me. If the sunshine in question behaves like a 2-year-old, the main female character is one of the most insufferable people I've ever had the displeasure of reading from the perspective of. I just really, 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 really don't like books where the main character, specifically the main female character, is infantilized. And it's infantilization city. Hop aboard. We've reached Assistant to the Villain station, and it is the capital of infantilization city. I was actually just like, what the My brother snatched this book from me while we were at the beach, and he literally said out loud, "What the fuck are you reading?" And this is a man that does not read. Love you, bro. But even he could see that this was really, really immature and really, really stupid. It is the definition of tell, don't show. I was so confused when things would happen and it would be like, yeah, last week we caught a dragon. Can you like tell us about the catching of the dragon? And she'd be like, you don't care about that. You care about the detail, the minutia of this secretary's life. No, I care about you catching a dragon. I care about you repairing the castle. Like, it was literally like she would just tell you what things were happening and you would never, ever, ever see it. It was just so frustrating and boring. And I was actually just really, really depressed at the state of literature if this was considered to be a top tier romantasy. Sorry, not sorry. Not good. Not good at all. The second worst book that I read this year, and it was the worst book I read this year for a long time until number one dethroned it, is The Winner. This book is like Challengers, except the two men in the relationship are two women and their mother and daughter. Mhm. What are you talking about? This book is so aggressively man written that I was getting so frustrated by the fact that this could have been a really fun, incredible thriller. And the ending? Teddy Wayne, you are not safe around me. I'll just say that. And I can understand the argument that evil characters sometimes get a happy ending, but this was diabolical. Awful to read this book as a woman. Trigger warning, content warning. Spoilers, if you're going to have sex with a mom and her daughter in the same hour, please wear a condom. Undisguised kinks in books, okay, fine. But this one? Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. I needed content warnings. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry if that icks me out. Sorry. Like, is that crazy? I will say the one good thing about this book is that it revived the group chat, and I was screaming about this book for a whole day because I read it really quickly, so plus I'll give it to you, but I was hate reading it. And without further ado, the worst book I read in 2025 is easily We Were Liars. This book is famous for having the worst plot twist of all time for a reason. It's actually genuinely so, so, so stupid. Also, it's like so stupid that it made me feel stupid. Like, I was like, am I stupid? That's how I was feeling when I was reading this book, because I was like, there's no way. There's no way, in fact. In fact, there was a way. That way was We Were Liars. This book did give me a giggle and a chuckle because the line by line writing is genuinely some of the funniest things I've ever read, albeit unintentionally. We had been in the attic before. Also, we had never been in the attic before. Right. Touching him is familiar and unfamiliar. We have been here before. Also, we have never been here before. Guys, I think we have found our modern Shakespeare. Like, what? We have been in this attic before. Also, we have never been in this attic before. When I tell you this book put me in the most violent reading slump of my entire reading career, I'm not lying. The one good thing about this book is that Actually, I can't think of anything. Sorry. All right, so that is my top 5 and bottom 5 books of 2025. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm really excited to get a new top 5 and bottom 5 for 2026. If you enjoyed watching the video, please do all the things like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.